Happy Fight Song Friday, boys and girls. What's up? Welcome into a new episode of the Bostonian versus the Book. My name is Matt Peralta. We are live on YouTube and X, replayed on Sports Grid Television. You 1 a.m. late night owls, hello. Thank you for being here. Audio podcast, wherever you guys get your audio podcasts. And boy, are we big time loaded today. We're going to talk to Jesse Merrick from the Silver and Black Sports Network here in about 10 minutes about what in the world that was last night for the Broncos and the Raiders. If you're a Raider fan, I'm not really sure where you go from here after watching that performance by your offense. How did they lose that game? That was almost like an intentional loss. I don't know. The Broncos did everything in their power to give that game to the Raiders. And then later in the show, Nick Bogdanovich. Nick has not been on the program for a while. Nick has moved over to a new operation here in Nevada called Boomer's Sportsbook. They are a brand new book that went live about 3 months ago here in the state of Nevada. And Nick is a legendary bookmaker here in the state and in the industry, extremely well respected. He's been on the show a couple of different times. So Nick's coming on in about 45 minutes to look at the college football slate, to look at the NFL slate, and tell us what Boomers has been doing and what you guys can get as a customer of Boomers coming up later on whenever you come to Vegas. They're only in Nevada, so it's only when you come here to Las Vegas. We will talk, obviously, college football. It is a Fight Song Friday. Got a bunch of good games to get into and break down, but opening line being sponsored by our friends at Huel. So I thought it might be fun to tell you a bit about one of the prepackaged. If you're watching the show, you can see what I'm holding. It is one of the prepackaged Huel Daily Greens that are available at Target nationwide. I'm just going to read to you. This is apple, cucumber, and mint. This is one I like. These are good, healthy drinks. I'm just going to read it right off to tell you what it is. Clarity you can feel. It has iron and B12. Daily defense systems, vitamin C, gut health. It's got a root fiber and calcium support for healthy digestion, skin, hair, and nails. This is biotin and zinc support, steady energy, full B vitamin complex support systems. This is gluten-free. This is vegan. 25 calories per can. Serving size is 1 full can. It is 42 vitamins, minerals, and superfoods, super greens. You've got lion's mane mushrooms. Whatever that is, it's good for you. I don't know that. 4 grams of fiber, electrolytes, and antioxidants as well. You can get Huel in Target, the pre-mades in Target, or you guys can go and use the code BVB by going to Huel.com/BVB, 15% off your first purchase, minimum order of $75 to get the 15% off with the code BVB. I do drink the pre-made I do the pre-made and these green from time to time, but I really do for meals. I'm big on the shakes. I'm big on the powder. I'm big on it. For the pre-made is tasty, but I like adding my own fruit and vegetables, whatever you want to add into it each and every morning. 40 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals. That also is gluten-free. Check it out. Huel.com/BVB, or you can check it out in Target nationwide, anywhere you have a Target. Let's start what happened last night, because it's kind of a combination. Last night was a debacle. Did you know that last night there were 12 drives? In that 10-7 victory for the Broncos, there were 12 drives that went fewer than 3 yards. Like, how is that possible? How, in an NFL football game with $1 million athletes, with $1 million coordinators, we have 12 drives that did not go more than 4 yards forward. That was a game that featured 15 punts, 3 interceptions, 2 missed field goals, a big one by Carlson for the Raiders that we'll talk to a bit with Jesse Merrick here in about 10 minutes. 1 turnover on downs. Geno Smith was sacked 6 times. And I get it. The offensive line had a couple of injuries during the game, which made it even worse for the number 1 sack defense in the NFL. Going into the game, everybody knew that the Raiders would have a hard time protecting Geno Smith. But once the injuries happened, it got really bad. And I mean, it got really, really bad. If you are a Raider fan, you have to be completely frustrated about this offense and this team, because the Broncos did everything in their power to give that game to the Raiders. The Broncos are 8-2, and they might be the most fraudulent 8-2 football team that I have seen in a long time. Bo Nix is regressing right before our eyes. The offense, I mean, I like J.K. Dobbins. I had a prop bet on him last night that cashed. Our BVB prop bet of the day cashed over 76.5 rushing and receiving yards for J.K. Dobbins. But after that, it's a lot of kind of mediocre play for that offense for the Broncos. The offensive line is good. The receivers are okay. I mean, it's good enough, but Bo Nix is not good enough. I mean, Bo Nix was throwing balls up for grabs. There were multiple interceptions that did not happen, that should have happened, that the Raiders defense played their tail off. I thought Max Crosby played his tail off last night for the Raiders. He was tremendous. The whole defense, I thought, played extremely well. Kept them in the football game. And then the offense did everything in their power to lose the game. Everything in their power. The penalties are inexcusable. You cannot, I mean, they're up 7-0, right? And they're driving, and Ashton Jeanty pops a 30-yard run. And away from the play, a wide receiver, Thornton, is called for holding, and it brings the whole thing back. If the Raiders go and kick a field goal there or score a touchdown on that drive, and they go up 14-0 or 10-0 even against the Broncos, that's probably a totally different game. The Raiders would have complete control over the game. Instead, they give the ball back. They punt the ball back. They give up a touchdown. It's tied 7-7 as we go to the break. Then you have a deep ball thrown in the second half that just, I guess I was in the second quarter, huh? Was that deep ball that got thrown to Thornton in which he dropped that you can't drop? Like you can't drop that play. And he did. A comedy of errors for the Raiders. And I know Geno Smith's not the greatest of quarterbacks, and I'm not very high on Geno Smith. However, I think you have to ask about the play calling, and you have to ask about the execution from the coaching staff as to what they were trying to accomplish last night, because some of the play calls were just head scratching. And again, they are, for whatever reason, hell-bent on limiting the touches for Ashton Jeanty. I don't know why. If it doesn't work a couple of times, they abandon the run. They don't have confidence in it. And Chip Kelly, just for whatever reason, he does not want to run the football consistently. He wants to throw the football consistently, but he doesn't want to run the football consistently because Ashton Jeanty's touches are still too low. He still should be touching the football more than he is. He scored a touchdown last night. He was involved in the passing attack. And yes, the ball that clanked off his helmet that was intercepted that ultimately turned out to be the game-winning drive for the Broncos is brutal. Absolutely brutal for that to happen. The Broncos are a better football team than the Raiders, but that's a game that the Raiders should have won. More on that with Jesse Merrick here in 5 minutes from the Silver and Black Sports Network. The other games I'm really excited about for this weekend. The Colts are playing the Falcons in Berlin, and it has just been announced that Sauce Gardner has been cleared from concussion protocol, and he's good to go. He's going to play for the Colts in Berlin. That is okay. You make the trade. You put him out there immediately. I like the Falcons, though. I mean, I'm off the Colts. This is 6.5 points. This feels like it's too heavy to me. I think this Falcons defense is a little bit underrated, and I think Bijan Robinson has a pretty big game running the football. He did not do very much against the Patriot defense. I think he has a big game running the ball against the Colts. So maybe not the passing attack, and you got to be careful, obviously, when it comes to what Michael Penix Jr. did this past weekend with the Patriot defense. He was fortunate not to throw a couple other picks against the Patriots, but Daniel Jones cannot do what he did last week. He cannot put the ball in harm's way. The Colts aren't good enough to turn the ball over and overcome even 1 or 2 turnovers, let alone 6. Like that ain't happening. You aren't winning on the road away from home if you're not on the road, but in Berlin, if you're turning the ball over 2 or 3 times against a Falcons defense, it's pretty opportunistic at times. So, I mean, the Patriot game probably goes, it may have been a blowout. If Drake May does not fumble the football at the end of the second quarter and allow a touchdown for the Falcons to cut the lead from 21-7 to 21-14, that could have been a blowout for the Patriots. So turnovers, I think, are going to be obviously a big factor here in this game in Berlin. But if you're a Colt fan, you get to see your guy out there and get to see him be on Drake London and shut down half the field. So I think it's a big deal to get him coming up. The dude is asking, the Colts or Broncos, who is more fraudulent? The Broncos. I don't think the Colts are fraudulent. I just think the Broncos are fraudulent. At 8-2, I think the Broncos are completely fraudulent. So no, I don't. I think the Colts, they were my number 1 football team for 3 weeks in the NFL. If you guys remember on my power rankings, I had the Colts at number 1. They're out of my top 5 now after what happened. But if they go and blow out the Falcons, they can jump back in. I mean, the 4-5, the Patriots hold at 5 is fleeting at best because, like I've told you guys all week, I'm all over the Bucs. And I can't believe this number hasn't moved to 3. I don't understand it. I thought this number would go to 3, but we've seen good two-way action. We'll talk to Nick Bogdanovich of Boomer Sportsbook coming up later in the show about that number as to whether or not they're going to move it to 3, or is the market going to move to 3? Because I'm surprised at the Patriot money coming in, and I love Drake May, okay? But this is a tough task for a second-year quarterback to go on the road to Tampa against Todd Bowles, against a defensive mind like Todd Bowles, who's going to blitz the holy hell out of the Patriots, and their offensive line is still inexperienced, right? I mean, they still have a rookie left tackle. So I would expect Will Campbell may not play great, okay? He may get exposed a little bit, and that happens with rookies, okay? Their whole left side of their offensive line, the guard and the left tackle, they're both rookies. So there's a lot of inexperience with the Patriots on that offensive line. So I like the Bucs. Give me the Bucs. And then the game that I haven't bet this yet, but I don't know what to do with it yet, is Rams 49ers. This is huge. I mean, it's a very streaky streak in terms of how this has gone historically and who has owned whom in this division. And the 49ers, I mean, do you want to play Brock Purdy? I don't know. Kyle Shanahan in 18 head-to-head matchups with Sean McVay. Shanahan is 11-7 straight up, 11-7 against the spread. With Matthew Stafford as the quarterback, Sean McVay is just 3-6 straight up and 3-6 against the number against Kyle Shanahan. This will be the 5th time that McVay is a road favorite against the Niners in Shanahan. He has won a grand total of 1 of those games so far. He's 1-3 straight up and 1-3 against the spread. McVay, when he's a favorite against Shanahan, is just 4-7 straight up, including 1-7 in his last 8 games in this spot. I like the Niners. I need the Niners, though, because I have a bet on the Niners to win the West. So this is one of those, like, I'm high on the Rams. The Rams have been a top 5 team for me pretty much all season. I like them a lot. I don't like them in this spot. This spot is dangerous. We'll get to some college games that I like a little bit later on, but let's continue the NFL conversation and talk about what the heck happened last night for the Raiders. He is Jesse Merrick, Silver and Black Sports Network, joining us. Full disclosure, I do a hit on his podcast every week talking gambling, so we're used to having this conversation. So Jesse knows where I was on this game yesterday. But my gosh, Jesse, good to see you. What do you do with that performance last night if you're a Raider fan?
Man, you scratch your head and wonder where the hell do they go from here? You know, I mean, we've seen it so many times throughout the season where, like, the Raiders just have not played complementary football, whether it's been the offense, the defense, the special teams, who knows? They've all kind of taken turns dropping the ball for the team, both literally and figuratively. And in last night's game, it's like that first quarter rolls around and I'm like, man, okay, this is the most complete football game the Raiders have played in a quarter. That was the best first quarter they've had all season long, which is crazy because, you know, they only scored 1 touchdown. But, like, I think, like, and we talked about this, I think when we were rehashing last week against the Jaguars, it was like, hey, look, they were competitive and kept the game close, much better than we saw in the game against the Chiefs, even the Colts, the Commanders. They were kind of right there. So I think that's something that Raiders fans can hang their hat on. And many of them probably celebrating the fact that like they were close and they lost because now they maintain their draft positioning, which again, like I told you when we were on the show, is ridiculous to be talking about the draft in early November. But I think that's where a lot of Raiders fans are. They're looking towards the future.
Are we using the T word? Are we tanking? Is this the idea now that, hey, play hard, play close, but make sure you lose?
Yeah, I mean, look, the tanking, I think, is something that Raider Nation is getting behind right now. A lot of people have been saying that on Twitter, at least. Obviously, we know that's a place for positivity. So lots of them are going in there saying they're ready. They're looking forward to next year, talking about the quarterbacks that are coming out and all that stuff. And it's like, it has been kind of that revolving deal for the Raiders each and every year. And until they find their quarterback, they're going to continue to have these issues. But obviously, there's more issues than just the quarterback. Geno Smith's been bad, but they've got a lot of things they need to fix. Having said that, I think the conversation is shifting towards that, which again, like I said, is wild. But I think this could be one of the years where you look at the schedule the rest of the way. And so many times over the years, people have brought up the tanking conversation and all that stuff. But the Raiders have become just good enough to be just far enough back in the draft where they can't address the quarterback position and all that stuff. And right now, the way the schedule's sitting up at 2-7, I think they're going to be bad enough to be in that area to be able to take a quarterback when that time comes, which is just a disgusting thing for me to say on November 7th. Anyway, like I said.
Jesse, what's the future for Chip Kelly, in your opinion? Because obviously Pete Carroll at 73 years of age came in to win right away. He brings in a former head coach in the NFL, a guy who's had a lot of success in college, to run this offense. And I'm not saying it was all Chip Kelly's fault last night, but they still got away from Ashton Jeanty way too fast. For whatever reason, he is immune to giving him the football over and over again. He just won't ride what they drafted in the top 10 in Ashton Jeanty. What's his future if this swoon continues? It can't be all Geno Smith, can it?
No. And I put a lot of this on Chip Kelly too. Look, I asked the question, is it time for him to be on the hot seat? And I think so. He's the highest paid offensive coordinator in the league. They have now scored under 10 points in 4 out of their 9 games this season. I don't give a damn who you have out there. Like, you cannot play that poorly, score that few of points on offense. Like, it's actually gotten worse from what it was last year with Luke Getsy as your offensive coordinator. And Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell platooning at quarterback. That is just insane to me. And again, I know the turnovers, we've talked about this many times. The turnovers from Geno have been a big part of why they've, had a lack of success. And this one, you can't put that interception on Geno. That's on Ashton Jeanty. I don't care where the ball was placed, all that stuff. It hit him in the chest. He has to catch that. And Ashton knows that. He would admit that. But I think in that game last night, what we saw from Chip, there were just so many things where I'm sitting there scratching my head. And even back to the game against the Jags, I'm sitting in the press box talking to some of the other reporters, and we're like, why aren't they running the football? I understand that Ashton Jeanty leads all rookie running backs in attempts and yards, but it still feels like there's so much meat left on the bone there that he could actually be in that conversation for most attempts and yards among all running backs, not just rookies, And anytime he seems to get hot, Chip kind of shifts away from it and moves away from it. And I understand you don't just want to run the ball. You don't want to be like the Pats. What was that one year when it was like 20-something straight runs or whatever the hell that was? You don't want to be like that each and every game. But when the rest of your offense isn't moving, isn't working, stick with what's getting you there. And too many times we've seen them come off of that. And so in the game last night, to me, there's a couple third down situations where I'm just sitting there like, what are you doing? What comes to mind is I think it was 3rd and 2 on that quarterback sneak. One of the worst quarterback sneaks you'll ever see. Why are you not running it with Ashton Jeanty there? There was also a third, and I don't remember the distance, but they threw on the outside to Tyler Lockett on a smash route. If Geno puts it on him, he likely falls forward for the first down. But even at the same time, why are we throwing to the edge and attacking the edges on 3rd and short when you have Ashton Jeanty? And then you go back to the 3rd and 6 late in the game when the Raiders are trying to come back and kick a field goal to at least tie it, whatever. And the Broncos are blitzing. They're sending 6. Your quarterback, Geno Smith, is very clearly hobbled and hurt. There's no hot route. You go back and look at the tape. I actually tweeted out if people want to check it out. I showed it after a second or so, probably 2 seconds after the ball was snapped, and all the routes are far developing past the sticks. And I understand you don't want to throw short of the sticks consistently, but when you see that a team is blitzing and they're pinning their ears back like that, you have to have a hot route for it. And yes, some of that is on Geno to check at the line, but also as an offensive coordinator, you got to protect your quarterback and have at least one route that can be your hot route in that situation. So just a couple of things that had me like scratching my head. And then we haven't even talked about the fact that Brock Bowers had 3 freaking targets. Like, what? It's insane. I mean, you cannot let a guy like that be completely taken out of the game. I don't care what a defense is doing. You can't let them dictate what happens to your star to that effect.
Yeah, and then you run a jet sweep with him that gets blown
Crazy.
up. Like, not the guy you want running jet sweeps. Like, I get the idea of having him have a touch or something, but that was bizarre, some of the ways that they were calling, the plays that they would be calling. But what do you make of the I don't want to say disaster with Daniel Carlson, but what happened in Daniel Carlson? That he was 2 years ago. He was what, like, people in Dallas, comes to kickers. It was like people here in Vegas were like, we got a weapon. Carlson can make any kick, 60-yard
Cash money Carlson was a thing,
Yeah, he was phenomenal. I know, kickers have a shelf life, whatever, but he's only 30 years old. And it feels like every time he kicks, it's a coin flip right now. And then he misses the game-tying field goal that, okay, maybe the wind affected it. Maybe the inside the building, it's swirling or whatever. But it's 14-mile-per-hour wind gusts. It wasn't like it was a 50-mile-per-hour wind gust. What do you make of the kicking situation?
Man, yeah, it's crazy. And this is, this is meant to be as a joke. I saw someone on Twitter said that Geno Smith touched his leg. That's why he's kind of fallen off. And I was like, damn, that's brutal. But it's a curious case for him. I was actually on Raider Nation Radio this morning talking about that very thing. And it's like, you guys, we all know what happens when a kicker just gets the yips for whatever reason. And it's one of those positions where, like a pitcher in baseball or whoever, like, you don't talk to them. You let them kind of go through it and do their thing. And he somehow has to figure out a way to get through this, man. I mean, for so many years in this franchise, especially this franchise too, like just the history that this team, this organization has of specialists, that's been one of the few things they can hang their hat on over the years, that their specialists are going to be on point. And so many times with him and AJ Cole, who did a great job punting last night, has been lights out for them. And then all of a sudden now it's just been like such a roller coaster ride. So when they line up to kick, it's no longer that cash money Carlson. You're like, oh man, like what's going to happen here? And no distance is safe, And so I think I go back to the Bears game, and I could be wrong, but I don't think he had any issues before the Bears game. And that kick gets blocked. And then they go on to lose the game there. Ever since then, at least on my memory, that's when things have been off in the kicking game. And so maybe he's just not trusting the protection in front of him. He's obviously a little in his head as well. But Daniel's like one of those like super mellow guys. Like anytime we talk to him, he's super even keeled. Doesn't seem like he's riding any sort of wave. So like you think he's going to revert back to who he's been. But again, with kickers, you just never know, So like this is a guy that got cut by the Vikings back in the day and looked like he was going to be out of the league. Comes to Vegas, wins a tryout, basically a competition, and ends up being a dude that everyone's like, wow, like look at how accurate he is. And he's like nailing them all. And then now it's just been like, is this the guy that we saw when he early on came into the league? So you hope he figures it out for his sake. Because again, good dude. Like, I'm just curious to see how he shakes this one, because it's tough, especially for kickers when they can kind of get in their own head.
Yeah, and Cam Little comes in here and breaks the NFL record at Allegiant by kicking a 68-yard field goal for the Jaguars. So it's like, okay, we know that this is a building in which you can kick the ball from pretty much anywhere on the field, and yet he has been unable to, either home or road, really to be a reliable weapon for a team whose margins are so incredibly small. And now this team moves on to Monday night, Jesse, against the Cowboys, coming to Allegiant Stadium. What do you make of this prep? They get an extra, it's Thursday to Monday, so they get extra time to prepare for the Cowboys. Do the fans want them to win that game, or is it just, hey, make sure that we're getting the top 3 pick in the draft, don't win this game on Monday night?
Yeah, sitting at 2-7, I think that's where a lot of fans are at. Personally, as someone who covers the team, like I'd like to see some movement in the right direction. And obviously, again, I don't want to be sitting here talking about the Raiders needing a quarterback and all these different things in the future. But it's one of those deals where, like, look, I think you look at the Cowboys. Their defense is not the Broncos' defense. Like, let's say that. Obviously, the Broncos have one of, if not the best defenses in the league. They're in that conversation for at the very least the top 3. So you think that's when, okay, so let's talk about it like this, I guess. If they cannot score on that Cowboys defense, heads need to roll. You know what I mean? So like, I think that's something like, if you're a fan of this team, forget the outcome. Let's just see if the Raiders can score more than 20 points. against a bad Cowboys team. And I think that should be a barometer of like, okay, are they improving? Even though like coming out of the bye week, they've at least been competitive in both of their games. So I think that's something that you can kind of hang your hat on where like, hey, there has been an improvement, even though there's been some issues. And like, look, penalties by the rookies was a big thing. And just mistakes by the rookies was a big thing last night in Denver. So you take some of those away and it's a completely different look for this team in this game. But I think you can say, hey, at least they've been competitive in these games afterwards. And that's where you can see kind of the stepping stones for them. Pete Carroll, even afterwards, weirdly said like how excited he was to go in the locker room and talk to his guys about the way they competed and was like, there's fight in these dogs and stuff. I tweeted it out. And it was a weird one because it was like, well, like, yeah, you guys lost and you had so many opportunities as an offense to go up by 2 scores and you couldn't do it. And it was so ugly in that sense. I think he was more so leaning on what he saw from the defense, but it's also like that Broncos offense isn't like a world beater either. Not to take anything away from the defense. Yeah.
No, it stinks.
So it was a weird.
Well, it stinks, and now they're playing one of the best offenses in the NFL. That's my worry. Is it like, okay, great, the Cowboys defense stinks, but the Cowboys offense is one of the best in football, and your defense has to give up what, 20, 17 points to be in the football game? That's not really possible in my mind.
No, it's not. And especially, look, the corners for the Raiders, the back end has been a bit of a struggle for them. Kyu Blue Kelly is a guy who at one point, at least through like the first 5-6 weeks of the season, had given up the most yards in coverage. He rebounds last night coming off the bench, has 2 interceptions after Bo kind of punts it. But still good for him to be able to kind of rebound and do that. They've also got Darian Porter, the rookie out of Iowa State, who's been getting more burn. But it's very much kind of like a learning curve, in the secondary there. Eric Stokes, I think, has played well for the most part. But we've also seen their safety, Isaiah Polomao, have some issues in coverage too, some bad eyes. He's not always the deepest of the deep. So I'm real curious to see how they handle these Cowboys receivers, because this is going to be the best receiving core they've faced all season. So that definitely spells some issues for them for sure in this matchup.
What's your percentage that Pete Carroll is back next year?
I honestly, I would put it at 90% or above, which may surprise some people, but this team, this franchise has run through coaches at an unbelievable rate. And I think Mark Davis is finally at a point where he's like, hey, look, we have to be able to establish some sort of culture. Even if it's a horrible season, got to be able to establish something. Pete has signed a 3-year deal. He's 74 years old. He's obviously not going to be around forever, but you bring him in to at least lay a foundation for whoever the next guy is. Obviously, the hope would be that it's somebody on this staff. Chip Kelly was possibly a guy that many people thought maybe would become that guy. That obviously doesn't look to be the case. Patrick Graham, their defensive coordinator, I think he's still in that conversation, to be completely honest. If they play like they did last night, his name's thrown in the conversation for some head coaching gigs, which it was a couple of years ago. So I'm real curious to see what the future looks like in terms of the staff. But if things continue the way they're going right now, heads do need to roll in terms of the coordinator spots. And again, I don't think that's on defense. I'm talking purely about Chip here. But There will definitely be turnover in terms of play callers and stuff like that if things continue like they are now. But I think it's almost a guarantee that Pete comes back, because this is a building year. This is not a great team. I think a lot of people thought, myself included, that they would be better than this. But it's clear there's a lot of youth on this team and a lot of just dysfunction in terms of things that have happened on the field. So it's let them get a year under their belt to really lay this foundation for what the future will be. Let's see what it looks like at this point next year, which I know Raiders fans are tired of punting season after season. But you have to let somebody really sink their teeth into it.
Last question, Jesse. Do you think Tom Brady becomes more involved, more visible? Does he have a bigger role this offseason with this roster, with this team? We saw him get a lot of heat for being in the booth with the headset on. We've not really seen anything like that since. But after it all kind of dies down, does he take a more active role with this roster going forward?
I would imagine so. I mean, look, I think the one thing people need to give credit to Mark Davis for is that, even though maybe he's made some questionable decisions in terms of coaching hires and things like that over the years, is he's never been afraid to bring people in that are quote unquote smarter than him, whatever, just to use that term and not delegate, but to listen to them. Mark listens to everybody. And who better to listen to than Tom Brady? I know that he hasn't been in a front office role before or any of those things, but he's one of, if not the best football minds the game has ever seen. So I think he is going to be much more involved. Obviously, look, the guy knows what it takes to win. And we talk about it all the time. Like, you can fool fans, you can fool, media members, all those different things, but you can't fool the players. The players can see through, different other players, different guys. They can see if they have it. And who better than Tom Brady to be the guy to figure out the quarterback of the future to see if this guy has it. So I think Tom takes over a much larger role in that sense. And also is probably doing a lot of work behind the scenes with John Spytek, the Raiders GM, as well, just in terms of figuring out, like, hey, look, here's all the data we have from what is looking to be a horrible season. How do we pull things from this to build and grow and make sure this doesn't happen next year? So, yeah, I'd be shocked if he's not more involved and has more of a say, because he is a very decisive guy and, again, has forgotten more football than just about everybody in the world will ever remember.
Yeah, Tom did the wrong cloning. Tom cloned his dog. He should have cloned himself, because that's what he needed. That's the
Raiders. Yeah,
the Raiders need a Brady clone to come in here and help this franchise out. Jesse, for folks that are in the chat, people watching on Sports Grid, listening on the audio, how can they find your stuff? What is Silver and Black Sports Network?
Yeah, so hit us up at silverandblacksportsnetwork.com. Our basis is a newsletter that comes out on Monday and Friday mornings. You can subscribe to that for free. On Mondays, we do a deep dive into the game, rehashing all the key moments and everything like that. And then on Fridays, that newsletter leads you into the weekend, the biggest storylines of the week for the Raiders, and gets you prepared for the upcoming game. But also, too, make sure you tune in for our podcast, which, Matt, obviously, you know all about it. The folks have watched you hop on there as well. We have podcasts that come out throughout the week. On Sundays after the games, or whatever night it is that the Raiders play, post-game reaction podcast, and then on Wednesday and Friday mornings as well, previewing all their matchups. You can find that on YouTube just by searching Silver and Black Sports Network. And then also find me on Twitter, X, whatever, at Jesse SBSN.
Good stuff, my friend. Have a good weekend. Thanks for the time.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Take it easy.
That is Jesse Merrick, Silver and Black Sports Network, joining us here on the Bostonian versus the Book. I hop on Jesse's podcast every for Friday. For the weekend, we do picks and plays. We did pretty well last night with the picks and plays last night. So we were 3-0 last night on the plays. So look, I think if you're a Raider fan, one thing you have to just kind of deal with is that your team is bad. And when your team is bad, there's a pivot. Right? You make that pivot to the future and you say, what am I going to do? What is my team going to do next year? And it's about building for next year. I've been highly critical of the Raiders not having a quarterback ready to go after Geno Smith. If Geno Smith didn't work, what would be the next step? The next step would be then to move to a rookie or a young developing quarterback. And you saw when Kenny Pickett came in last night, it was a disaster. Like, Kenny Pickett is not going to be a quarterback in the NFL. So that, to me, is my frustration, is that, like, they put all their eggs into the Geno Smith basket and there's nowhere else to go now. It's just Geno. And then Geno might be hurt. So we'll see what, how he goes. Addison says Jesse is great. He deserves better. Raiders get it together. Yeah. Imagine going to practice. I mean, Jesse goes to practice 4 times a week. I mean, Jesse left. So his story is pretty cool. He left local TV here in Vegas. He was one of the lead sports guys for one of the networks, one of the channels here, covering the Raiders. And he wanted to do his own thing. He wanted to do more football. He wanted to be more heavily involved with one team and cover the Raiders and use his knowledge of football. Jesse's a film nut. He loves to break down film. And so he left and rolled the dice with the Silver and Black Sports Network. So if you're a Raider fan, you should absolutely be checking it out, because he does great work. It's a lot of honesty. It's independent media. So it's not tied to anything. He's not, answering to anybody, any higher up or any business, any ownership group. It's just Jesse. He's very similar to what we do here with BVB. And that's why I'm helping him out doing we call it Raiders Rounders. It's a sports gambling topic for the NFL week, that week that we tape during the week. And then it comes out on Friday. And, the Raiders, the best thing about the Raiders being bad is that you can make money on it. You can make money on it. You can go ahead and bet it, which is tremendous. Nick Bogdanovich will be joining us here in about 10 minutes or so. In the meantime, it is time. It's our favorite Friday activity. We call it Fight Song Friday. Big games in college football coming up to break it all down. All right, there are a bunch of big games in college football to get into, and I am actually not ready to bet It's weird. Normally by Friday, my betting card, I've got a pretty good idea as to what I'm going to do from a betting perspective. I really don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I got to go into the lab, as the kids call it, and figure out what I want to bet tomorrow, because I really don't know, because there's a lot of really good games, but the numbers are getting sharper and sharper and a lot of road favorites. I'm not sure I'm interested in laying road favorites, but let's get into them. There's some top 25 matchups, including who I think the best team in the country is coming up with Texas A&M having a big road game. They're road favorites. They're laying 7. Game day is going to be, game day, is with Texas Tech, but Texas A&M on the road against Missouri. Big game. So A&M is laying 7 at Missouri. Missouri, one of the best rushing offenses in college football. But A&M, I think they're the best team in America. And if this number, and this maybe will be an in-game play for me, but if we get 7, 6, or we get 6.5 rather, we go below 7, even if it hedges back to Missouri before kickoff, I think A&M is the right side. I think A&M will win. I think A&M will send a message. Missouri is not an easy place to play, but there are more difficult places to play in the SEC than going to Columbia. I do really like A&M here in this spot, and I think that they keep on rolling. I will lay the points most likely, although I want 6.5 or 6. I don't really want to lay 7 just because of the overtime situations with A&M and Missouri, but I think A&M goes there and makes a statement here against Missouri, who I think will have a difficult time moving the football against a very speedy, very opportunistic defense from Mike Elko and company with the Aggies. But that's going to be a fun game to watch, to see how A&M handles being that big of a road favorite. I mean, laying a touchdown on the road, it's a big number for them to go ahead and do that. Big deal coming up here, going on here for Texas Tech and BYU. So this is a number that I will ask Nick Bogdanovich about, because I am surprised. This number's heavy. BYU is a very good football team at home. BYU on the road, not nearly as good, but 10.5? 10.5. Okay. Texas Tech has been very good at home, like I mentioned. Texas Tech is a team I think most college football fans feel like maybe a little bit on the overrated side, and feel like, okay, how good really is Texas Tech? How are they going to handle being at home where they are 5-0 against the spread so far this year? They have won games going away. They beat Oklahoma State by 42 points at home. They beat Kansas by 25 points at home. They beat Oregon State by 31 points at home. They beat Kent State by 48 points at home. Do you sense the trend here for Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas? Not an easy place to get to, not an easy place to play. Now, but BYU, they're 3-1 against the number on the road. They took on East Carolina. They laid 6.5 points on the road. They won by 21. They went to Colorado. They laid 6.5, and they almost lost that game. They won by 3. And that might be the reason why the number is 10.5. They went to Arizona laying 2.5, and they won by 6. And they went to Iowa State last week before they had a bye. They didn't have a bye week last week. They went last week to Iowa State, catching 2.5 points, and they won by 14. I was really surprised by that number. Like, that number was high to me. I was surprised that Iowa State was 2.5 point favorites. So I laid it with Iowa State, and BYU went, and it was an impressive performance. I was dead wrong about Iowa State, and I was wrong about BYU for the most part. Now they're catching 10.5 points. This is begging you to take the dog. This is asking you to take the dog. Hey, saying, wait a minute, a top 10 team is catching 10.5 points on the road. You don't see this very often. I can't bet this for that reason, but it feels like you probably should lay it with Texas Tech. It feels like Tech's the side because the books really want you to take the points. Maybe too much wanting you to take the points. Well, have you seen the weather in Iowa City coming up for the game on Saturday tomorrow? Oregon is laying 6.5 points on the road at Iowa. These teams have one loss in the Big Ten, each of them. And oh my gosh, it is going to be raining and 40 degrees at Kinnick Stadium. Oh, look at Eric. Let's go, Iowa. Wow. How about that? All of a sudden, you are a big Iowa fan, Eric. I don't know, man. This is Kirk Ferentz against Oregon speed. I don't know. Oregon's already won at Penn State. Now, okay, Penn State, I was with James Franklin. That started the ball going in the wrong direction here for Penn State. But you want to take Iowa at home? You feel comfortable taking Iowa to score against Oregon's defense? I'm not so sure I do. Oh, look at Joel. He'll be there. Joel, how many layers? How many layers are you going to be packing for that game coming up tomorrow? I've been there in the Iowa November weather. It is brutal when it's cold and raining. It's like if it was 10 degrees colder, it would be snowing, and you're good with it. If it's 10 degrees warmer, it's raining, and it's okay. It's somewhat comfortable. But 40 in rain is absolute misery to be a football fan at Kinnick Stadium. Like, there is nothing fun about being outside in that weather. Look at Brooke. This smells like an Iowa money line. Iowa money line. Oh my. All right. I am going to be very curious. Again, like I've said, I've not made up my mind on the card tomorrow. There are so many games in which I'm not 100% sure as to where I want to go and what I want to bet on, because it feels like it's Oregon. It feels like you lay it, and it feels like once they get to 20 points that the game's over, that Iowa's not going to be able to keep up, that Iowa's not going to be able to score. But I think the problem comes down to weather. It's Oregon. They're used to cold and rain. It's not like they're not going to be able to practice or deal with that weather. But Oregon's coming off of just a 14-point victory against Wisconsin, who stinks, but they were at home. They were laying 31.5 in that game, and they won by 14. But Iowa's coming off of a game in which they beat Minnesota by 38 points. They spanked them at home, and the pig stays in Iowa City, laying 7.5 points against Minnesota, and it was never close. They beat Penn State by 1 as 3-point favorites. They won, but they didn't cover in that game. They beat Wisconsin by 37 points on the road. There's a common opponent in the last month between Oregon and Iowa. Iowa beat Wisconsin by 37. Oregon beat Wisconsin at home by 14. Iowa did that on the road. So if you want to do, some similarities, might be there. You might go ahead and jump on Iowa and say that Iowa is the side. You guys all seem to think so, that they're the side. Just punch them in the mouth. I don't know. Or that seems like an antiquated opinion, Joel. That seems a little bit on the outside, that like West Coast people are soft, or that Oregon is soft. That seems like an antiquated opinion. I think Oregon kind of has proven that they're not soft, but that's going to be a game. Weather's going to have a big factor. I know you probably want me to play Indiana's fight song, but I'm playing Penn State because it's Dave. Come on, we're playing Penn State. Will Cignetti cover again? I mean, all he does is cover. That's all the guy does. Runs up the score, covers on anybody, on everybody. Doesn't matter how many points you lay down as a bookmaker. Indiana's live to cover. Indiana has won by 45, 50, 25, 10, 5, 53, 73, 47, and 13 this season. That's nuts. Against the number, it hasn't really mattered. On the road, they're 2-1, Indiana. The only game on the road they didn't cover was against Iowa. Tip of the cap to the Hawkeyes. That was a game that they could have covered, but that was the game in which the kid ran backwards and went into the end zone and got the safety. They won by 5, laying 9. The next week, they went to Oregon as 7-point dogs. They won the game by 10, and that's when me and everybody else went, okay, this is not a typical Indiana football team. They're not going to shrink. This team is going to be a real problem. And they're probably going to be a real problem in this game for Penn State's defense that just went to Ohio State and lost by 24 points. How many points will Indiana score? I think that's the number you're going to need to figure out before you bet this game. How many points will the Hoosiers score? The Hoosiers have scored 55, 56, 38, and 30 the last 4 games against Oregon, Michigan State, UCLA, and Maryland. Penn State has given up 38, 25, 22, and 42 points in the same situation, including Penn State giving up 42 points to UCLA, the same UCLA team that Indiana beat 56-6. So, yeah. Good luck with that. It's going to be a tough day, I think, for Penn State. 14.5 is a lot of points, but I would tend to say that that's going to be the side you're going to want to go ahead and drop down. All right, let's talk to Nick Bogdanovich. Boomer Sportsbook. They are a new book here in the city of Las Vegas in the state of Nevada. Nick, Matt Perrault, good to see you. Thanks for coming back on.
I'm doing great, buddy. How about you?
I'm going well. Thanks for coming on. First and foremost, tell the folks about Boomers. What is it? Where is it? What are you guys up to this football season?
Yeah, state of Nevada only. We got 4 locations right now, but we're growing. I think by the end of, I don't know, in about 6 or 7 months, we'll have 7 or 8 more places. But right now in Las Vegas, Ellis Island, everyone knows Ellis Island. It's a locals legendary hangout, and Casino Valley Verde out in Green Valley. So swing on by one of those places, sign up for a mobile app, and swing into action.
Very cool. Okay, so all right, how is it for you now as coming back? You're at Circa, now you're coming over to Boomers. What's this football season been like for you?
Just because it's a brand new startup company, hiring people, training, menu's really big, so it's just really, really busy.
Yeah, let's see if we can get a better connection. There you
go. Maybe not so much in the center, but it's always a challenge. Lay $1.05 and trying to drum up business.
Right. Okay. I was asking the guys in the chat. I'll ask you as well about this coming weekend in terms of, action you guys are seeing so far. There's a lot of top 25 matchups, a lot of big games. Well, I want to start with Indiana and Penn State, that number being 14.5. Anybody taking the dog with you guys? Anyone thinking Penn State can hang around?
Yeah, we had some sharp play at the dog. They took 15. We're at 14.5, but I have a feeling we'll either go down to 14 and there'll be public money for Indiana this week. I mean, they've just been a covering machine, and obviously Penn State's in a downward spiral. So at some point there'll be public money.
Do you guys think that you could potentially get back to 14 or below 14, or you're going to stay at 14.5? Ooh, I think he froze big time now. Big freeze. You got me? Let's see if we can.
14. But yeah,
Okay, can you hear me? Are we back? There we go. I think yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. What are you guys seeing from Texas A&M and Missouri? Because this number is being 7. Obviously, A&M is a pretty good football team. They're ranked the top 3 in the college football playoffs. You guys seeing much action on the dog, or is it all A&M action?
Yeah, the early money's on the dog. We took a bet from a professional +7. We're at 6.5. But like the Indiana Penn State game, at some point there'll be money for A&M. I mean, they're ranked 3rd in the nation and undefeated, so there's always going to be money for them.
Right. All right. Let's go to Sunday. Colts and the Falcons over in Berlin. Obviously, it's an early morning for all you bookmakers here in Nevada. Do you see good handle on these international games, or are people here just kind of waking up and they don't get to the book too early?
Yeah, they're the lowest handle of all the games. You know, people just don't get up. I mean, obviously the hardcore ones will, or the ones smart enough to make their bets the day before. But there's no question those 6:30 starts on the West Coast have very little handle on them.
What is your number one handle game at the moment? And then how big of a game do you think Patriots Bucks will be for the folks here in the city?
Patriots Bucks will be a really good one. You know, two playoff teams, 2 young stud quarterbacks, Baker and Drake May. So that'll be a really big handle game for sure. You know, I don't see there's one game that's got the biggest handle right now. If I had to say so, it'd probably be the Rams and Frisco. We opened that game 3.5. We're up to 4.5. So that's probably the game with the most handle. But yeah, you know, that'll be determined this weekend.
How do you guys do when a team like the Steelers plays on Sunday night, where you've got obviously a lot of eyeballs, a West Coast team and the Chargers? What are you guys expecting to see out of Sunday Night Football?
Well, that'll be a monster handle game, obviously, with all the storylines going there. Aaron Rodgers, he's polarizing. Justin Herbert, he's a star. And it's the Sunday night game. So either trying to get out or you're pressing with your winnings. So, and the game's near pick'em. So there'll be good two-way action.
Whoa. What just happened? Okay. I think we just lost Nick. I don't know what just happened. Okay. I think we lost him. What? That was wild. Where'd that go? That was the first time that's ever happened. I don't know. I don't know what happened. We lost Nick. Everything got shut off. Wow, we lost Nick. Well, I appreciate Nick coming on. That was crazy. I don't know how that was a unique situation. That was a complete collapse. I haven't seen that before with a connection. Looks like router issues or something came in. But okay, appreciate Nick Bogdanovich and Boomers are coming on in, being a part of the program on there. I'll be curious to see the handle for that Sunday night game. I think is going to be absolutely monstrous, and we'll get into it with the plays that I think for the weekend. I like the NFL card a whole lot more than what I like with the college slate. I've already made a bet on the college slate, on the pro slate, like I mentioned. Just the Picks is being brought to you by our friends at the Prop Bet Cheat Sheet. Betting Pros is Prop Bet Cheat Sheet. You guys can go and check out all the prop options that they've got available for you. Betting Pros app. Head over to bettingpros.com/props. Compare lines with their daily projections. You can make pick plays for NBA plays and for the NFL weekend coming up. They also have a lot with Major League Baseball when the season's going on for the MLB. Check it out by downloading the Betting Pros app or heading over to bettingpros.com/props. So here's where I am on the Rams. Sorry, on the Bucks and the Patriots. I just don't have faith in the Patriots offensive line to be able to handle Todd Bowles' rush. And I think they're going to confuse Drake May. He's a young quarterback. This is what Todd Bowles lives for confusing young quarterbacks. I think the Patriot defense will keep the game close. I think the under probably is a decent look, but I like the Bucks. I bet it already. I bet it on Tuesday. I want the 2.5. I'm stunned this game has not gone to 3. I'm sorry it didn't work out with Nick because I wanted to ask him about if he thought this number would close at 3. But when we talked yesterday, to Adam Bjorn, he thought it was going to stay at 2.5 because they're of the two-way action, that if they go to 3, it gets bought to the Patriots. It comes right back down to 2.5. And that's where the pros are taking the Bucks at 2.5. So there's good disagreement in the market about what this game looks like. I'll just take Tampa. As a Patriot fan, I've seen this game too many times where New England goes south to Florida and has a really tough time. They're calling this the Brady Bowl. I mean, Drake May is right now looking like a quarterback who's going to be in the MVP conversation for a while. And if I'm dead wrong, okay, about this, if the Patriots go and win this game, you should probably buy Drake May MVP tickets right now because the number's gone. The number will explode. He will become the odds-on favorite, in my opinion, by a ways if he winds up going down to Tampa Bay and wins this game. If he can go down there and win it, it would be remarkable. Drake May is 5-1 right now, opened up at 50-1. I think Drake May would pass Josh Allen if he can go to Tampa Bay and beat the Bucks. He will have beaten Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen on the road if he was able to do this. I mean, they're in first place in the division. The Patriots' schedule has been so easy that I think this is the game that gets them because the Bucks have played a much harder brand of football and schedule in the NFC. Patriots defense will keep them in the game, but I like the Bucks -3 to win and to cover coming up. The international game, I like the Falcons at +6.5. I think they keep the game close. I know people have talked about the Colts here and a big bounce back spot for Indianapolis, but I mean the Falcons aren't horrible. And Shane Steichen, look, this is the time. Shane Steichen talked about it. We have to play well in November and December, and he simply has not coached a team playing well in November and December. So it's hard to see this because of where we are. Favorites have been very good in international games, historically speaking. Overall, they're 39-14-1 straight up, and they're 34-20 against the spread. Favorites of more than a field goal or more overseas are 29-9-1 straight up and 24-15 against the number. So this would lead towards the Colts. This would lead towards a bounce back spot. This would, teams coming off of a straight up loss as the favorite in an international game are 2-0 this season against the spread. So this would lead you to believe that the Colts would be the side, but I feel like we got to go with the Falcons here. I'll take the points with the Falcons. I teased the Lions down. I took the Broncos last night. I took the Raiders +9.5. I told you that. And then we took the Broncos from 8.5 down to 2.5 and had the Lions -2. So I think the Lions, I will be stunned. And I mean stunned if the Lions lose this game coming up this weekend. Like this is every number, every spread, every trend, everything is pointing towards Jared Goff and Dan Campbell. They have won and covered 12 games in a row off a loss dating back to November of 2022. Okay. In Goff's career outdoors, it's a little bit different though. He's 24-7 against the number indoors off a straight up loss, while he's just 9-14-1 against the spread after a straight up loss. This game's outdoors in Washington. The problem is that Marcus Mariota has lost 6 straight games in which he has started when listed as an underdog. You have Marcus Mariota, you have this defense. It's just not a great situation. It's a bad matchup. Lions win. I don't want to play around with the number of being 8 or 8.5 or 9. I don't want to play around with it. I just think it could be somewhat difficult on that. So I just think there's a problem for the Washington Commanders. And even though they got good news with Jaden Daniels about his arm, yeah, I'm going with the Lions here. Broncos -2.5, Lions -2 is my teaser of the week. We'll see how the first half of that's already cashed. We'll see what the second half of that looks like coming up here on Sunday. If you guys are watching on the replay on Sports Grid TV, thank you for being here. Have a great weekend. We're back on Monday to recap it all at 10 p.m. Pacific, 1 a.m. Eastern time. If you're listening to the audio podcast or watching live on YouTube or X, don't move. Bonus time starts now. Okay. Ish is asking, do I think the Niners is a good teaser pick? I do. I think the Niners going from 4 to 10 is a good teaser. That is a good teaser leg, in my opinion. I would be surprised if the Niners got blown out by the Rams. I gave these stats earlier in the show, but we'll do it again. For the most part, Kyle Shanahan has owned Sean McVay. Like, that's just sort of the way this division has gone, with certain coaches owning the other coach. You've got, with Stafford at quarterback, Sean McVay is 3-6 straight up and 3-6 against the spread against Kyle Shanahan. This is the 5th time McVay is a road favorite against the 49ers in Shanahan. He's just 1-3 straight up and 1-3 against the number. Over the last 8 games in this spot where McVay is listed as a favorite against Shanahan, his teams are just 1-7 straight up. Shanahan owns McVay, owns him. So Stafford's great. I'm a big fan of the Rams. In the second half, the Rams are 7-1 against the spread. So if it's a tie game at halftime, I think you can come in and say, okay, we're going to take the Rams. But there are a couple of scary stats for the Niners. Since Christmas of 23, the 49ers are 1-14 ATS after an outright win. That's the worst mark of any team in the NFL. In that span, they are failing to cover the spread by 7.5 points per game. Since the start of the 23 season, the Niners are 0-3 straight up and 0-3 against the spread as an underdog coming off of a straight up win, which they are here, losing those games by a combined score of 87-41. So that's why I like the teaser angle versus coming and taking that. Take the teaser. Trends are your friends until they are not. Lions won't cover. Will they win, though, JPC? Those trends were Ben Johnson, not John freaking Morton. Great weekend show, pre-rolls. Enjoy the weekend. You too, my friend. Thank you for that. That's nice of you. I would say teasing the Niners up to 10 is a good play. San Fran plus 10. I like it a lot. You could tease it with the Lions. You could tease the Lions down, and you could take the Niners up. So Lions down from 8 to 2 and take the Niners from 4 up to 10. That's not a bad teaser at all. Given how close their first game was, how about the Bills and the Dolphins too? You can tease that, but that's a worry. Okay. That game's a worry for me. That's one of those games where it's just lined through it and I don't want any part of it. I don't want any part of it. Okay. The Bills on the road in Miami in November. How many times have we seen that go sideways for Buffalo? Don't want it. I know Tua has thrown 11 interceptions. I know this offense has not performed well. I know they don't Tyreek Hill. I get it. I understand all those things. But if you listen to the people in Miami, the talk shows and the pundits down there, by the way, they say the team has not quit on Mike McDaniel, that they are still playing hard for him, that they want to play for him. And so that's going to be a game in which Buffalo needs to be in trouble. Why not move the Dolphins number instead? See, this is the same thing happened last night. Okay. So like, I like the Raiders, right? So somebody said to me, well, why don't you just tease the Raiders up, give them 6 points. They go to 15.5. You could do that. Okay. Yes, you could do that, but I'm not in love with the idea that you need to do that and give up the juice or I just think you just take the points. I think if you think the Bills can cover 15, 16 points, I think they're going to cover 9.5 or 9 as well. So, the Dolphins are awful on Thursday Night Football, but Tua at home has been so much better than Tua on the road. When Tua is on a homestand playing a second straight home game or later, he is 10-2 straight up and 9-3 against the spread with the Dolphins. He's 3-0 in the situation where he's at home, second straight home game as a dog. He has covered in all 3 situations. At home, with Tua at quarterback, the Dolphins are 26-11 straight up. When they play on that second game, they've won the second game or the homestand where he's 3-0 against the spread and 3-0 straight up. They've won the game outright by an average of 15 points. So I think you've got to be a little careful with this. The Bills have beaten the Dolphins 7 straight and 14 of 15 straight up. I mean, dating back to the beginning of the 2017 season, it's been an absolute domination. The Bills are 16-2 over the last 18 matchups with the Dolphins. Okay. So like it's been all Bills in this matchup. So it's hard to kind of go, yeah, this is going to be a tough matchup for the Bills. The Bills should go in there and just blow the doors off of Miami if they're playing up to their capabilities. But historically speaking, Tua has played much better in this situation and has had a pretty good shot at winning these games. At home this year, Miami is 2-2 ATS. They're 2-3 on the road. The Bills are 2-1 against the number. They won against Carolina. They they lost to Atlanta as 3.5-point favorites. They lost by 10 in that game, and they beat the Jets by 20 as 5.5-point favorites. The Bills' schedule has been really favorable, by the way. Like you want to talk about teams that might be a little bit fraudulent? The Bills might be a little bit fraudulent. The Bills, they've played at home against Baltimore, Miami, New Orleans, New England, and Kansas City. They're 4-4 this year, ATS. They're 1-2 ATS against the AFC East. They've covered and won the last 2 games. But it's interesting. You look at Buffalo and you're like, okay, their road games are against the Jets, the Falcons, and the Panthers. And they lost one of those games outright, losing to the Falcons. And they covered against the Jets and they covered against Carolina. And now they're on the road against Miami, where this is a big step up for Buffalo in terms of road competition. This is different. I mean, there's still a lot of talent on this Dolphins team. 9.5. I think you just take the points. Just take 9.5. Take Miami plus 9.5. The Lions, Seahawks, and Colts. Teasers paradise. Okay, yeah, I agree. Lions down under a field goal. Colts down to a pick. And the Seahawks down to a pick. Here's my problem with Seattle. And I have the Seahawks as the number 1 team in football right now. I love Seattle. I love the trade for Shaheed. I think they've done incredible things this season with Sam Darnold. I'm super, super high on the Seattle Seahawks. Here's the problem. I have a hard time handicapping Jacoby Brissett because I was all over the Cowboys last week, and Brissett said, no, thank you. Kyler Murray has sucked against the Seahawks, but it's not Kyler Murray. He's on the IR. He's gone for the next 4 games. This is all going to be about Brissett. Arizona, entering Monday night's game against the Cowboys, have the league's toughest remaining schedule. Dallas, Seattle, Cincinnati, Houston. They've had some pretty decent teams, decent matchups. Let me give you the Cardinals schedule here. The rest of the way. It's not going to be fun for Arizona. Their schedule goes Seattle on the road, the Niners at home, the Jaguars at home, at the Bucks, home for the Rams, at the Texans, home for the Falcons, at the Bengals, and at the Rams. Good luck. Without Kyler Murray, Seahawks, Niners, Jaguars, and the Bucks. 2 of those 4 games on the road, home games against the Niners and the Jaguars. I don't think Kyler Murray will play another snap for the Cardinals again. I hope you're right, Sonic. But I do think you can tease Seattle and not lay the 6.5. I do think you can pull it down and take Seattle for that on that. I like Seattle a lot. I'm a huge fan of what they're doing. I was a huge fan of the Colts too, and what the Colts were doing. And then no, it did not go well last week against Pittsburgh. They fell completely flat on their face. It was absolutely brutal to see that L. So this is the college football weekend for me is sort of like There's like 3 games I want to watch. Okay. And then Saturday is a honeydew list. If you're an NFL football fan and like a casual college football fan, Saturday is a great day to get stuff done. Like go rake the leaves, go get the leaves out of the gutters, like do the housework on Saturday. Because Sunday's games from start to finish are an absolute must. Sit in front of your TV set and watch. I mean, starting, at least for us here out west, you start with the early morning, 6:30 in the morning kickoff between the Colts and the Falcons. That's a great game. Okay, that's awesome. And then you go to the early slate where Baltimore at Minnesota is a sneaky good game to find out which direction both those teams are going to go. The Patriots at Tampa is the game that everyone's going to be watching across the country. If you don't have the Sunday ticket, your local network's going to give you Patriots at the Bucks. That's a great game. And then the afternoon slate is highlighted by Arizona at Seattle and the Rams at the 49ers. Those 2 games are awesome. And then Sunday night is the Steelers at the Chargers. That game is tremendous. So you're talking, from early in the morning till all the way into the evening, there are good NFL football games all Sunday long. Just tremendous. Absolutely tremendous to get into. Then we didn't even talk about college basketball today because it's a Fight Song Friday, but the college basketball slate, we talked about it a bit yesterday, but there are some really good games tonight. Great game with North Carolina at home coming up here for tonight against Kansas. Like, I cannot wait. That's a 4:00 Pacific time, 7:00 Eastern time tip. This is the game of the night with Carolina and Kansas. You get a chance to get a good look at both these 2 teams as to where they're going to go. The Peterson kid for Kansas has everybody up in arms. That game tonight is going to be phenomenal. That's not a bet game for me. That's a watch game for me. I need to see how that game's going to go before I start getting involved with either one of those 2 teams. And then tomorrow at noon Eastern time, you have Alabama against St. John's at the Garden. Like, that's an awesome basketball game as well. That's a game that's got to be on a secondary screen. I'm actually more excited for that college basketball game than I am for any college football game tomorrow. I'm super excited to watch St. John's and Alabama tomorrow on Saturday. So again, another game to watch, another game that's worth paying attention to. That's not so much where you're going to be like, yes, I want to get into just watching college football. You can watch college basketball tomorrow as well. So I haven't looked at the college basketball schedule for Sunday. Hold on. Anything on Sunday? Nope. Not a single ranked team's playing on Sunday. That's smart. That's good. Are we back? Are we into Big Monday or are we on Tuesday? Yeah, there's nothing really. Although Mississippi State against Iowa State in Sioux Falls, that's not bad. So we get a chance to see Iowa State play against an SEC school on Monday. And then on Tuesday, Duke and Army. But we see Duke, though. Top 10 team in action. Oh, Kentucky, Louisville. There we go. There's the game. I thought there might be something on Tuesday. Kentucky and Louisville on Tuesday. Here, okay. That's a barn burner. That's in Louisville on Tuesday. That's an awesome game. And then Texas Tech, Illinois. Okay. That in Champaign. That's a great game too. So Texas Tech against Illinois. So Tuesday's got a couple of really good games. Creighton at Gonzaga. How did I not know that? I should have known that. I'm the Creighton guy. Creighton plays at Gonzaga on Tuesday in Spokane, Washington. Wow. That's wild, given the fact, if you know the Nembhard situation, that's wild because that's where Nembhard went. Ryan Nembhard, that's where he went. He's not on that roster, right? Ryan Nembhard, he graduated, right? Yeah, he graduated. Okay. 2 very similar programs. Creighton and Gonzaga playing is awesome-ish, I would agree. That game's tremendous. Arkansas, Michigan State is tomorrow night. Let's see. That's on Saturday night for Arkansas and Mississippi State. Let's see. Yep. Arkansas, Michigan State. Yep, that game's at 4:00 Eastern, 7:00. Okay, that's a good game too at night. Wow, it's on Big Fox too, huh? On a football Saturday, they got Arkansas, Michigan State, college basketball. Gosh, I love this time of the year. There's so many good things to watch. There's so many good things to pay attention to. It's a fun time of the year to be a sports fan. October, November, a lot of fun, a lot of good games, a lot of things to pay attention to. Guys, thank you for being here. My thanks to Jesse Merrick from Silver and Black Sports Network. Check him out for all of your coverage. And to Nick Bogdanovich, sorry for the technical difficulties with Nick's phone. Hopefully you guys got a little bit of that, but Nick Bogdanovich from Boomer Sportsbook joining us, talking a bit about what's happening on the college and pro football slates. You guys can check out Boomers if you come to Las Vegas anytime in the near future. They are a Nevada-based book. Ellis Island is an awesome property. It's all brand new, by the way. They just totally redid the Ellis Island. Just check it out. Ellis Island's pretty cool. So you got that coming up here for you guys. For that, thank you to the Brigade. Thank you guys for being here. Have a phenomenal weekend. I will talk to you guys on Monday to recap it all on another episode of the Bostonian versus the Book.